and welcome back to CQ. Apologies everyone for our technical issues this morning. For those who have joined since we got cut off, we're going to start again for you. So here we are today. I have with me Injay. Injay, reminder / for new people, tell us tell us a bit about what you do here at AWS.
Hi MJ, my name is Injay. Fun fact, we actually used to have a colleague called Namjay. We all sit together, so very confusing for everyone. But anyway, my name is Injay. I'm a solutions architect, and I look after the mid-market territory for our Queensland customers. So you can see here, it's a surfer's paradise, lovely beaches. I was actually there 2 weeks ago as well as part of my remit. So yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. And tell us a bit about what's going on, what's hot right now for you and your customers.
So there's probably two large emerging sort of patterns or demands that I see from customers. Yep. And first is all about data.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things coming out recently that's quite trending. So things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data analytics. But the common denominator is having the data.
Okay.
Right? So often that means building a data lake so that you can apply these downstream analytics or machine learning use cases. So a big part of my day-to-day job is to help customers with their data platform. And the second part is all about modernizing application development, which typically means you take a legacy monolithic stack. It's often things that's been running forever, for a long time. Nobody quite knows the source code or help deploy new code to it. So it's all about breaking that down into a small set of microservices so that the businesses can innovate and develop faster for their customers.
Awesome. So big data focus. How are you feeling today about going through the SysOps associate level exam with me?
Well, so let me just shuffle my important. I'll do it again, right?
He was dying to do it last time. So we are using the official study guide available at wiley.com, also available at amazon.com. Injay, are you ready to give our viewers a bit of prep?
Technical moment, I will fix this.
We'll fix the slides for you in a minute. Are you ready to give our viewers a bit of prep on their next AWS certification?
Sure, let's do it.
Awesome. Question 1 on compute. How can you obtain a report that shows your current monthly spend with AWS and an estimate of how much you will spend this entire month?
Okay, cool. So this is something that I have conversation with customers almost every day. So maybe what I'll do is I'll explain some of the different concepts as I go through each answer as well.
That'd be great.
Bit of a deja vu moment there, but yeah. So firstly, use the AWS Total Cost of Ownership or TCO calculator to build a model of your current infrastructure and use it to create an estimate.
Okay.
Quite a long one.
Yeah,
there.
it is. A lot to digest again.
So the TCO calculator often is, we use it to compare on-premise environment versus when you're evaluating hosting on the cloud, such as AWS.
So a pre-AWS.
Yeah, pre-COVID. So look, something to kind of really highlight there is the wording, current monthly spending with AWS, meaning that you're probably already on the platform. So TCO calculator, often we kind of use something like a server as an analogy or example. And now when you think about a server, there's a lot of different things that goes around it, such as, you need storage, you need networking, you need power, cooling, maybe you have redundant power, so UPS systems, and of course, you need people to look after these as well.
And that's all in the TCO calculator?
Correct. So often when you want to evaluate how much does it cost to run on premises versus in the cloud, you need to take a lot of these things, or the total cost, into consideration as well. So look, going back to the question.
Not quite what we're looking for.
Not quite what we're looking for. Maybe if the question was, hey, we want to know roughly a comparison between the two. But in this case, let's just mark it off and move on.
Number 2?
Cool. Number 2, use the My Billing dashboard to see your current spend and what your estimated total monthlies would be.
I mean, that's basically the question, right?
Pretty much. Yeah, so look, just to make it easy, we'll kind of earmark and come back to it, but that's down pretty promising as well.
Yep.
Cool. So number 3, depending on the level of support.
We're going to earmark it?
Oh, we're going to earmark it, right.
Is that something we can do in the exam?
Yes, you can. So this is a little friendly mini tip of the week.
So you're not quite ready for
that? No,
okay,
okay.
We'll mini tip.
Mini unicorn. And when the actual exam, something that I'd advise as well, so whether you take the associate or professional exam, is that you need to be mindful of time. And sometimes, a lot of these exams, if you're not quite sure, you can just mark it for review and come back to it. And the reason for that is sometimes you get questions later on in the exam, which might give you some hints and some direction to help go back to and answer the first question.
Awesome. So mark for review is what we're looking for.
Yes.
Got it.
Cool. Wait.
Number
Third
three.
one. Yep, number 3. So depending on the level of support you have with AWS, open a trouble ticket and ask to be provided with this information.
Oh gosh. Okay. That doesn't sound like a great answer to me.
No, and it's probably not a great answer for our customer support team
No.
either, right? But I would say this is probably not the answer, just because it's quite reactive. Although it's not to say you can't do it. And sometimes I recommend customers to get in contact with our customer support team when they need explanation about their billing item. So why something costs something, and why. And so I guess the details around that. But really the question is asking about how do I do it in a self-service way.
Perfect.
So cool. So maybe we'll put it as a maybe, but I'll probably wouldn't consider it as a correct answer here. Now, lastly, use the AWS Simple Monthly Calculator to build a model of your current infrastructure and use it to create an estimate.
Okay.
So the Simple Monthly Calculator, it's a tool that we use quite often with both our customers and internally in AWS. And what that is it allows you to plot different resources such as EC2, maybe the sizes and the number of VMs you want to have as well, maybe things like RDS, what sort of database, what kind of licensing model. So all these different configurations give you a monthly estimate of what your billing might be like on AWS. So this is something more to do with when you're considering a new project or perhaps a new deployment of your application.
It's a good way to look at it.
So, it could be used, but I think just to kind of wrap this up, I'll probably say number 2 is probably going to be the best answer.
So our poll's coming through is 50-50 between 2 and 4, Injay.
Okay.
Let's check out the ansser.
Aha.
Billing dashboard is indeed correct.
Cool.
Off to a great start. Not technically, but question-wise we are. Let's
say
move on. Let's move on to question 2.
Sure.
Identity and access management. Oh, okay, nice simple one for you. Which one of the following is true when using AWS IAM groups?
Cool.
Groups being the key word here.
Groups. Okay. Awesome. So I would say another, I guess, trick to the exam is just because the question's short doesn't mean it's always going to be the easiest as well.
Assumption
Often
from me.
I think that longer questions give you away more hints in the question as well.
Yeah.
And you specify that in the longer exams like the professional as well, you have to really read through carefully. Because, but anyways, go back to this question. There's not a lot of hints, but let's go through line by line.
Sure.
And perhaps I'll explain the different concepts between users and groups as well.
That'd be great.
So, an IAM user. Well, an IAM user it's a user. They use to either log into the console or you have programmatic access through the API keys. If you want to do it through things like command line or maybe in your software to make API calls. Now, a group is simply a collection of different IAM users. So a way to manage IAM users. And an IAM role is something that you often really associate with a resource or a service. So things like an EC2 instance or maybe even a Lambda function so that you can provide the resource API permissions to make calls out to your different services.
Okay.
So let's go through
Jump
the answers
into the
one by one.
answers.
Yeah. So number 1, IAM users are members of a default user group. Now, as far as I know, correct me on this, I don't think there actually is a default user group when you create an IAM user. So
I agree.
Yeah, so maybe what we can do is we can actually use the elimination of process of elimination and go through. So number 1, I don't think that is, so maybe we'll kind of as a maybe, I'll probably will cross it off. Number 2, groups can be nested. So one of the things we kind of have to know about the service as well. And as far as I know, I don't think you can actually nest groups as well. So again, we'll kind of
So a couple of incorrect-ish answers thrown in there to throw us off.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing, right? You kind of need often practical hands-on experience. And the IAM users and the service is free as well. So if you have access to AWS account, you can simply create it and click around and get some learnings.
I think that's key, the hands-on experience actually for these exams. It's not just about memorizing a book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. So thirdly, an IAM user can be a member of multiple groups.
Looks good.
Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good, right? Cool.
But let's check number 4.
Okay, let's check number 4. An IAM role can be members of a group. I'll probably say no, because again, an IAM role is something you attach to a resource, and you'll attach multiple users to a group as well. So let's check the answer, shall we?
Which answer are you locking in?
Oh,
AJ?
sorry. Right, I was sort of cheating there. Let's go with number 3.
100% of the poll are going with you as well. Told you it was an easy one.
Cool. Look, I'll probably say maybe something I'll kind of mention quickly.
Yeah, please.
often when you kind of get to a certain size, you would have a central identity provider, such as Active Directory.
Okay.
And that could be, maybe using things like Office 365, or using Google, is it Google Apps or G Suite?
Yep.
One of them.
Yep.
Anyway, right? And the idea for security best practice is to have centralized identity management,
Yep.
meaning that you don't really want a set of IAM user accounts, and you don't really want to maintain different AD user groups, AD users as well. So think about the login that you use often to your corporate network. You want to have a single sign-on that controls everything. And part of that is to organize all the groups at that level, and then use things like SAML or single sign-on to control what level of access you have on the AWS side.
Perfect.
So it's a bit of best practices.
Bit of extra information for you there.
Why not?
All right, question 3, networking. How's your networking, Inja?
Pretty good. So it was actually my major in university as well. So yeah, there you go.
So it should be sweet. Here we go. What is the difference between an internet-facing load balancer and an internal-facing load balancer? Oh, I like this one.
Ooh, okay. So I'm going to use the process of elimination here as well and knock out some answers, easy answers as I go.
Okay.
So when it comes to load balancer in AWS, there's several different types. So first is the application load balancer, which
Yep.
is the what you call a level. It's a layer 7 application load balancer as well. So you can do things like path-based routing, or URI-based routing, or query strings as well. The second type of load balancer is a network load balancer, or an NLB. And that's more layer 3 and layer 4, more network level as well, right? And the last one is what we used to be called Elastic Load Balancer. Now it's called Classic Load Balancer as well. So that is still there, but I'll probably recommend customers to use either the ALB or the NLB, because there's a lot of different benefits from adopting either of the two.
Perfect.
Cool. So let's go through the question, shall we?
Eliminate.
Yeah. Let's go with the last one. Let's go from bottom up.
Internet-facing load balancers are larger than the internal load balancers.
So I'll probably say no, because, well, as far as the constructs go, it's the exact same thing. It's just a matter of different configuration, whether it's the internet-facing or internal-facing.
Okay.
So we can knock that out straight away. Cool. So let's go with...
Get rid of number 4.
Yep. Let's go with number 3. The DNS name of an internet-facing load balancer resolves to a public IP address, while an internal-facing load balancer resolves to a private IP address. That sounds pretty good. And typically, you would associate something that's a public resource by having a public IP address, and often with a internet gateway as well, so you can go out into the internet. So that looks pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty good so far. Cool. Good second one. Yeah. So internet-facing load balancers can be only placed in public subnets, whilst internal load balancers can be placed in private subnets. So I would probably say, look, to tell the truth, I wasn't actually quite sure as well.
Okay.
I'm like, could you actually
I like
do
the
it?
honesty.
Could you actually do it as well? And typically, I would probably say, for me, it was probably a toss-up between 2 and 3.
Okay.
And for me, honestly, I'll probably say a maybe for a 2, or I'll probably market review and come back to it if it was an actual exam live situation as well. Cool. So,
what about number 1?
Number 1, by default, internet-facing load balancers get the DNS from DHCP servers, while internal load balancers do not. And we could probably knock that down as well. I mean, that seems a bit kind of silly as well. So really, it's down to 2 and 3.
And on the poll, they're split between 2 and 4.
2 and 4. So if we go through process of elimination, it would be 2. But I would say, in the answer, I'll probably lean towards 3.
We're always looking for the best answer, right? So there may be more than one that will get us to the solution.
It's one of those things that you probably need a bit of practical experience as well. But if you actually look at through our documentation, it actually says the definition, which is the internet-facing resolved to a public IP address, whilst the internal-facing load balancer resolves to a private IP address, meaning that you can only really interact with the internal load balancer if you're coming from within the VPC network.
Perfect.
So lock in 3, Eddie.
Locking in 3. 3 is correct. We got there.
Cool.
All right, moving on to question 4, storage. You ready?
Yeah.
You are running a photo sharing website. Users need to be able to retrieve and display any image. On average, most images are requested only once or twice a year. What would be the most cost-effective, highly available method of storing these images?
Okay, and I think this is the time to call the unicorns.
Oh, okay. Tip of the week from Injay. Talk to us. What's your top tip of the week?
So I would say when you go to the exam, there's probably some key synonyms or sort of keyword mapping you want to have in your mind.
Okay.
So when it comes to things like storage, often there's words like cost-effective. Now,
Yeah.
when it's cost-effective in storage, it often alludes to an answer that describes S3 or Glacier.
So you're saying they're trying to lead you down a certain
Yes,
mind map
correct.
there?
It's all about the cost. It's
Fair
all
enough.
about the keywords in the thing and picking these out. There's different examples as well, such as high availability. Often equates to things like multiple AZs or having resilient,
Yeah.
reliant architecture as well.
Perfect. Let's jump back
Cool.
into the question then.
All right. So with that in mind, we
With
know
that in
that
mind.
often the answer is going to be around S3 or
Couple of
Glacier.
S3s on there.
So number 3 and 4, yeah.
But
So
are you saying then we would look at this and totally write off 1 and 2?
you probably would. Now, I can explain the different concepts and why it would not be the case as well. And again, I'll kind of relate it back to the question to hope.
Perfect.
Yep, cool.
Yep.
So number 1, save images on Amazon EBS or Elastic Block Store. So this is basically just a network storage attached to your servers. Now, could you do it? Absolutely. Now, would it be the most cost-effective way? Probably
Use
not.
disk? No.
No. So S3 and Glacier is often the cheapest way to store objects in the cloud.
But let's go through the rest before
Yeah,
we get
sure.
to
That's
number
fine.
4.
Yeah, okay.
What about EFS?
So EFS is a managed NFS service. So
Yep.
this is more for shared storage when you have multiple servers requiring a centralized repository or storage. And again, you can do it, but there's no real difference between the EFS and EBS in this scenario. I mean,
Okay,
you're both storing
enough.
into a fairly expensive storage medium.
Cool.
Yep. So number 3, save images on Amazon S3 as standard infrequent access.
I mean, I like these because that's what's in the question. The fact is they're wanting it infrequently.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't actually pick that up. Yeah, that's a good point. So you only need to request it infrequently, only once or twice.
I mean, I know you told me to go to Glacier, but I'm just saying.
Okay, well, so let's go with number 4. Maybe we'll do a bit of comparison, shall we?
Okay, let's
Cool.
do it.
So save images on Amazon S3 as Glacier Deep Archive. Now,
Oh, a new.
yeah,
One
so
for
look,
us.
I would say the Glacier Deep Archive is probably going to be the most cost-effective way. In fact, it will be the cheapest way to store. But if you think about the characteristics of retrieving from Glacier and S3, it's all about how fast can you retrieve the object from the storage as well. So often with Glacier
Okay.
Deep Archive, you probably need a few hours to retrieve it. So think about almost like cold storage or archiving or like tapes, where you need a certain amount of time for you can retrieve. So
Yep.
so from a user's perspective, let's say that people want to retrieve it from a website. Now, it wouldn't be a great experience if people had to wait a few hours just to see their photos, right? So I will probably say we'll go with number 3, standard infrequent access, as it seems to sort of be in a bit of that Goldilocks zone between storage, cost.
So
and
what you're saying is, MJ, you were right.
Well, I'm not saying that, but let's go with number 3, shall we?
Going with number 3, quick check on the poll, 100% for number 3. Lots of people agreeing on the chat as well. We've got Agora Sentiment. Can't even pronounce it. But reason why it's not Glacier is because these files would want to be retrieved quickly. Exactly right. So
So thank you,
Great
Agora,
chat.
and thank you, MJ.
Question higher up from Sax.
I can't see it, John.
Okay.
There's
Is
so much
Glacier
chat going
good
on.
If you won't use it frequently, right?
Sorry, can you read?
Is Glacier good if you don't use it frequently?
Is Glacier
Well-
good if you don't use it frequently? Yeah,
Like we just
absolutely.
said.
Yeah, so things like archiving or sometimes long-term backups where often you have things like compliance reasons. So,
Exactly.
financial records, you probably need to keep that for 7 years. Medical
speaking
records
of,
might
someone
be.
mentioned tax documents.
Oh,
so
really?
What
There you go. So,
what a
who was that?
coincidence.
So,
Sax
Sax02. So thank you, Sax02.
There you go.
There you
All right, 3 it is. Loving that question
Yeah.
online. EJ, let's move on to question 5, Amazon RDS.
Mm.
All right, if there are multiple read replicas for a primary Amazon RDS DB instance and one of them is promoted, what happens to the rest of the read replicas?
Okay, cool. So maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of explain a read replica first and get the use cases around that.
That'd be great.
And then before I kind of tackle into the promotion process and maybe why you might want to do that as well. So firstly, with read replicas, this is available through some certain database engines such as MySQL or Postgres on RDS. And typically, you would use things like read replicas because often when we talk about best practices for architecture at AWS, we often talk about horizontal scaling,
Yep.
which is rather than vertical scaling. So rather than going up, or throwing money and getting higher CPU, higher memory for database instance, you would typically want to go out first. And part of it is around high availability, but it's all about right-siding and really being able to scale the elasticity with demand and capacity that you have.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of big words, but really, you would have things like read replicas because it helps out a lot of things like where you might have use cases where such as you have BI tools where these are read heavy type of things where, or maybe your traffic is that you're read heavy as well. So maybe it's a website that does a lot of reading and searching. And that typically means maybe it could be 70-30% breakdown as well. And this is a question that can come up quite often as well, where they do mention things like read and write breakdown things as well. So cool. So
pretty short answers here. Let's have a look, shall we?
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to read replicas and promote, what happens to the other read replicas that's in place? And this is something that you probably need to get a bit more experience, or at least read the documentation to
I would say
know about the process. So much like the failover between when you have multiple AZs on. So what would happen is that when you set up a read replica, you would basically promote it to a master database, and then well, with that in mind, and with the rest of the read replicas, it doesn't get any affected as well. In fact, you probably want to do that, and then within your application, you might want to perhaps point it to your new master database so you can continue to do the writes.
Okay.
So, number one, there is no change in behavior. Well, that's probably the answer, but we'll come back to that as well. So, number two, they will be deleted. I mean, it's a direct conflict.
That would be
number
bad.
one, yeah. So, probably not number two. So number three, this suspend replication operation. So it's actually interesting about replication is that with read replicas, it's using asynchronous replication rather than synchronous replication. So do you think it's worthwhile if I kind of touched on?
I do. I like it. Go.
So when it comes to asynchronous replication, that means, let's say if we're a database, right? Yeah. So we have a part of MJ is my read only. I'm the master database.
Oh, typical.
So as a new application writes into my table, and I flush the operation into the disk, essentially the application has to wait until I write to myself, and then I write to you using synchronous replication, and then I get an OK back from you. And then I have to tell the application saying, hey, we're all good here. We wrote it in 2 different places. Good thing about that is that if I were to fail, or if I were to die, you would, there would be a level of consistency on the data replication as well. So you could be promoted to the new master database, and this is what happens in the multiple AZ configuration as well. And you would be able to continue without any significant impact to the business.
Very important. I love the visual, EJ.
Yeah, cool. See if I that. Right. So if it was async replication, I don't have to wait for that OK, which means that you would be a really good use case for things like cross-region replicas, where you might want to use things like regional failover. So we talk about multiple AZ and what happens if the availability zone fails, but what happens if a whole entire Sydney region fails, for example. And this is where having things like a cross-region replica in, say, in Singapore region or in Japan region, and then you can promote that to your new master and have your application write to it as well. So you can really have regional failovers. So going back to the questions, I'll probably say number 1 is yes.
I mean, I hope it's number 1.
I hope it's number 1.
Roll that in, Jay. On the poll, they've actually locked in number 4.
Oh, interesting. They will start replicating for new promoted data. Well, so part of the replication process is that when you promote the read replica to a new master database, you would create a read replica from that one to back to your original sort of place as well.
So still very confident with your answer, and the answer is number 1. All right, I think we've got time for one more question today, everyone. So let's jump into CloudWatch. Using the free tier, what is the frequency of Amazon EC2 monitoring provided by Amazon CloudWatch? This is one of those hands-on experience is not going to help. You're going to need to know the facts.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the things, it mentioned the free tier. So, a lot of these services, especially with EC2 instance and CloudWatch, it is covered the free tier as well. So you can get hands-on experience as well. But it's one of the things you just have to have practical experience. Or you can just memorize it. Right?
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, okay. So, if by default...
just so you know, 100% straight away on the poll has gone for 5 minutes.
And you know what? I'll probably go with that as well. And the key thing here is that there's 2 differences. If you have the default monitoring interval, it's 5 minutes.
Yep.
If you have the detailed one where you have to enable and pay a bit extra, it's 1 minute interval as well. It gives you that granularity. So we'll go with
Perfect.
number 4.
Let's go with number 4. Poll hasn't changed. Let's lock it in. Number 4
Awesome.
it is. Injay, thank you so much for being with me today. Again, everyone online, so sorry for our technical issues at the beginning. Thanks for sticking it out with us. We'll see you next time on CQ.
All right, see ya. Bye.